A'udhu billahi minash shaitwanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inshallah, we are starting today, continuing with chapter number 4, verse number 124 to 143. Inshallah, as usual, for the first about 5 minutes, we shall do the actual English translation of these verses, and after that, inshallah, we will discuss the salient features. So let's start. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. But whoever works righteousness, whether male or female, and is a believer, those will enter paradise and will not be wronged a whit. And who is better in religion than he who submits himself wholly to God and is a doer of good and follows the faith of Abraham, the monotheist? God has chosen Abraham for a friend. To God belongs what is in the heavens and what is on earth, and God encompasses everything. They asked you for a ruling about women. Say, God gives you a ruling about them, and so does what is stated to you in the book about widowed women, from whom you withhold what is decreed for them, yet you desire to marry them, and about helpless children, that you should treat them fairly. Whatever good you do, God knows it. If a woman fears maltreatment or desertion from her husband, there is no fault in them if they reconcile their differences, for reconciliation is best. Souls are prone to avarice, yet if you do what is good and practice piety, God is cognizant of what you do. You will not be able to treat women with equal fairness, no matter how much you desire it. But do not be so biased as to leave another suspended. If you make amends and act righteously, God is forgiving and merciful. And if they separate, God will enrich each of them from His abundance. God is bounteous and wise. To God belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. We have instructed those who were given the book before you and you to be conscious of God. But if you refuse, to God belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. God is in no need praiseworthy. To God belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. God suffices as manager. If He wills, He can do away with you, O people, and bring others. God is able to do that. Whoever desires the reward of this world, with God is the reward of this world and the next. God is all hearing, all seeing. O you who believe, stand firmly for justice as witnesses to God, even if against yourself or your parents or your relatives. Whether one is rich or poor, God takes care of both. So do not follow your desires, lest you deviate. If you deviate or turn away, then God is aware of what you do. O you who believe, believe in God and His messenger and the book He sent down to His messenger and the book He sent down before. Whoever rejects God, His angels, His books, His messengers, and the last day has strayed far in error. Those who believe, then disbelieve, then believe, then disbelieve, then increase in disbelief, God will not forgive them, nor will He guide them to a straight path. Inform the hypocrites that they will have a painful punishment. Those who ally themselves with the disbelievers instead of the believers, do they seek glory in them? All glory belongs to God. He has revealed to you in the book that when you hear God's revelations being rejected or ridiculed, do not sit with them until they engage in some other subject. Otherwise, you would be like them. God will gather the hypocrites and the disbelievers into hell altogether. Those who lie in wait for you, if you attain victory from God, they say, were we not with you? But if the disbelievers get a turn, they say, did we not side with you and defend you from the believers? God will judge between you on the day of resurrection, and God will give the disbelievers no means of overcoming the believers. The hypocrites try to deceive God, but He is deceiving them, and when they stand for prayer, they stand lazily, showing off in front of people and remembering God only a little, wavering in between, neither with these nor with those. Whomever God sends astray, you will never find for him a way. So Alhamdulillah, these were today's verses. We have done the actual translation. chapter number 4, verse number 124 to 143. Now let's discuss some of these verses. So first of all, in verse 124, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, talking about non-Muslims, that unless, no matter how much good deeds they will do, unless they also have what we call iman and faith, and they believe in all the things, they believe in the religion of Islam and all the requirements, the religion of Abraham, they are on the wrong path. So that's critical. And in 128, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about if women, if husband and wife have some problems going on, then they can always agree to go for a divorce. Although, as I also said in one of my earlier videos, divorce is one thing which is allowed and which is halal, but that is one thing which is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he said that among the halal things, divorce is the most disliked things in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on one hand, if there is no other way possible, it's better to opt for a divorce. But on the other hand, husband and wife are supposed to try their best to avoid it and try to manage their relationship without resorting for a divorce. And then in 129, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly is saying that even if you try your best, you will not be able to be just with more than one wives. So as we all know, Islam allows up to 4 wives. A man can marry and keep up to 4 wives at a time. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has clearly also mentioned in this verse number 129 that first of all, doing injustice is a sin, is a big sin. And if we have more than one wife, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that even if you try your level best, you will not be able to do full justice with multiple wives. So obviously it's a clear indication that just like divorce is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hint is and guidance is that try not to do multiple wives, because you will end up being unfair and doing injustice to your wives. So that's also important to note and understand. Then in 135, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that stand firmly for justice even if it's against yourself or your parents or your relatives. So this is a very critical verse. We have to appreciate that the not being just and not doing the truthful witness, not being a truthful witness is a big sin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you must always be ready to be a witness, even if it's against your own self or against your immediate family, your parents, your children, your husband, your wife, your brothers, your sisters, your anyone. So it's absolutely critical in Islam. Being unjust or wrong witness is one of the big sins. And over here, this is also, we can find a connection with other things also, like we are seeing all these majority of Muslims today are Muslim for namesake only, or which include hypocrite Muslims also. So they are obviously on the wrong path. So whoever is a basic Muslim or who is trying to be a good Muslim, he or she must try to be a witness against all these Muslims for namesake only, even if they are our own immediate family members, even if they are our own children, our parents, our siblings. We have to stand against them and in front of them and discourage them and do our basic duty and our basic jihad, which is the only jihad possible in today's day and time, which I always say is the basic duty, is a first on each and every Muslim, and that is Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, that we have to call people towards the good deeds and stop them from bad deeds. That's our basic duty. That's our first jihad on each and every Muslim, individually and collectively, in today's day and time. And that for that, even if we have to become a witness against our own self, against our own families, we are supposed to do that. And by witness, it means that while stopping people from doing bad things, from being sinful, we should not worry about being nice to them. In the sense, of course, we have to be civil and nice, but we should not be diplomatic in the sense that we give more priority to the fact that somebody will not like me, somebody will hold a grudge against me, somebody will have an ill feeling about me, and maybe my children will not love me, they will not respect me, or maybe my husband or my wife or my parents will not love me. All this is not allowed, because our priority should be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our basic duty, which I just said, Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. And we will be doing a favor to anyone we are trying to bring on the right path. So no matter how bad they feel, we will, by nagging them, by irritating them, by again and again reminding them to avoid sins and to be on the right path, we will be doing them a favor. So we should not care as to how they will feel about us. So it may strain our relationship with our loved ones. It may result in some kind of distance. Our loved ones, our immediate family may start avoiding us, but that doesn't mean that we leave them alone and we'll let them be suicidal for the permanent life of hereafter and be the biggest loser forever, just because we care more about the relationship than what is our basic duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very important, and this in a way is also what this verse is saying, 135, that we be witness to for the right thing, even if it's against our own self or against our parents or children or anyone. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same verse 135 is saying that whether you are rich or poor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of us. So it really doesn't matter. These are our worldly standards, if somebody is rich or poor. We don't have to feel that somebody is blessed and successful just because they have more wealth and they are more rich, because that is our standard. That's not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's standard. Allah's standard of success in this life and in the life of hereafter is who has more taqwa, who is more pious, who is more on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's path. And that's what should decide as to who is successful, who is not successful in this life as well as in the life hereafter. So as I always say, if somebody is not as wealthy, and even if somebody is poor and just hand to mouth, if that person or that family has more taqwa and more muttaqi and they are a better Muslim, they are definitely more praiseworthy and they are much better than those rich people, or including billionaires and the most successful people in this world, who are not taking care of the life hereafter. As I always say, these people are actually the most dumb and the biggest failure, and we should not be impressed with them in any respect. So in 136, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 136, 137 and 138 and 139, again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about non-Muslims, which in our case will include Muslim for namesake only and Munafiq Muslims, that unless somebody believes in Allah and His Messenger and all the books and the last day and angels and everything, no matter how what our deeds are, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept it. Any good deed will be rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if we don't have Iman. And that way all hypocrite Muslims and Muslims for namesake only and non-Muslims, their deeds are of no meaning. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not give any credit for any good deeds. That's a given, which is given in Quran and Pak everywhere. And then in 139, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, okay, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to seek glory and respect and reputation among non-believers? Then all the respect and reputation belongs only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is very common. We see There are so many Muslims for namesake only, including hypocrite Muslims. They are all the time impressed with the people who are successful based on our worldly standards. Even if they are non-Muslim, they don't care. They just want to be to be in their good books. They just try to get close to them by hook or by crook. They have no respect about the fact that a person who is not a Muslim can never deserve the respect which a person who has good faith will deserve, because taqwa is our standard. The level of taqwa is supposed to be the precondition, the starting point to decide who is more respectful in this life as well as for the life hereafter. Of course, this does not mean that we should be rude or we should be uncivil with Muslim for namesake only, or Munafiq Muslims, or with non-Muslims. We have to be the best in our character, the best in our relationship, but that deep connection, that bond, the bond of respect, and the closeness which a relationship can have cannot happen unless we base it based on the level of taqwa a person has. And it goes for anyone. It goes to our relationships also, whether it's our immediate family or extended families, or friends, close friends or communities, or anyone. It's the same standard we have to use, the standard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam sunnah, nothing else. That should be the starting point. That's the primary standard. Everything else is secondary. And then in 140, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He has revealed to you in the book that when you hear God's revelations being rejected or ridiculed, do not sit with them until they engage in some other subject. Otherwise, you would be like them. So over here, in a way, we can also see that all our Muslim societies, especially where the sinfulness is rampant and big sins are happening in Muslim societies. So this verse is also gives us a indirect meaning and connection to this situation, that if we are among this society and we don't do our basic duty, which I will repeat, our basic duty is, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in many places in Quran Pak, is Amar bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar. We have to call people for good things and stop them from sins, from bad deeds. But if we don't do this and we are a part of this society, we are among people who are sinful, and we don't even express any displeasure with the situation. We don't even try to avoid those situations. We don't socially boycott those people and those situations. Then we will also be seen as a part of these sinful people, because that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in verse number 140. Of course, the direct meaning is that if there is a small gathering, suppose a family is sitting or few friends are sitting, and they start talking about Islam and the requirements, and then in the process they start ridiculing about the basic guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we become part of that discussion, we don't show our displeasure. That is not allowed as per this verse, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying you have to walk out of that discussion till the topic is different, otherwise you will be considered part of the discussion. But as I said earlier, a broader meaning and connection can also be made out of this verse with our society, which is sinful these days, Muslim societies which are sinful these days. If we become a part of this society, a benign part of this society which has no reaction, who is not trying to do Amar bil Maruf wa Nahy anil Munkar, then also we will be considered a part of this society. We will also be considered sinful, because we are not doing our part and we are not showing displeasure. We are not walking out of those sinful situations in people. So that is also important to understand. And then in 141, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that towards the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, God will judge between you on the day of resurrection, and God will give the disbelievers no means of overcoming the believers. So of course there is a promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as we see in the hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, first of all, even in this life, ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that ultimately He will make sure that believers are, the Muslims are dominating non-Muslims. So that's a promise. Before this world will end, before the last day will come, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this promise that the mission of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to spread Islam, Allah's deen, throughout the world, that would be fulfilled. From east to west and west to east, it will be all dominating faith of Islam before this world will come to an end. But there is also another promise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making in this verse, which is 141, that no matter what happens in this life, of course for the people who are dying, who will not see the last day, obviously they may have passed away by being so-called dominating non-Muslims and all, but ultimately on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised that the moments and the Muslims and the people who will be successful on the life in the life hereafter on the day of judgment, obviously they will be dominating people who would be unsuccessful, and that would include all Muslims for namesake only, as well as Munafiq Muslims, as well as all non-Muslims. That's the promise which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made for this life as well as for the life hereafter. Then in 142, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and it's a very common thing, very important words Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, talking about hypocrites. The hypocrites try to deceive God, but He is deceiving them. And when they stand for prayer, they stand lazily, showing off in front of people and remembering God only a little. So this is very common. If we see our Muslim societies and Muslim people, Muslim families and friends and everyone, Muslims for namesake only, which include hypocrite Muslims, they, first of all, they don't pray, but even if they pray, they are forced into a situation where they have no other option but to pray. They do exactly what this verse is saying. They stand lazily, showing off in front of people and remembering God only a little. And it's very common. I personally experience all the time among my friends and communities and extended families and family and immediate family, that sometimes among our family members, if they are not regular in prayer, sometimes they are just like Muslims for namesake only, or even in some cases because of their some concepts which contradict the basics of Islam, they can also rightly be seen as hypocrite Muslims. So when they are forced in some unavoidable situation to do some namaz, you can clearly observe them that they do exactly what this verse is saying, that they stand lazily, showing off in front of people and remembering God, but only a little. And this one proof is that it's very often you will also see these people that when they pray, especially if you force them to pray and they pray on their own, the way they pray, it's literally, it's not even possible to say one time with full speed Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and in that short time they finish the whole namaz of minimum 2 rakat in that short time. And I'll give you an example. For example, if I read Surah Fatiha really fast just now, you imagine how many seconds it takes. It will be less than, probably not even 30 seconds. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, ihdinas siratal mustaqim, siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim, ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin, Ameen. Now see, this is like 10-15 seconds or 20 seconds. Now these people, when they are forced to pray in certain situation and you observe them, they literally will finish the whole 1 rakah or 2 rakahs in worst cases in this 15-20 seconds. Now this shows the level of hypocrisy which these people show. And this is exactly the demonstration of what this verse is saying, that they don't pray, but when they pray, they stand lazily, showing off in front of people and remembering God only a little. And one more thing is very clear, that based on this behavior, it's absolutely clear that most of these hypocrite peoples, and Muslim for namesake only, they will not even bother about the fact whether they have wuzu or not. They will just, because they are being called, they are being forced to pray, they will come even without wuzu, and they will just try to do this prayer for the sake of showing off that, okay, we have done what you want. Their heart is not there. They don't perhaps even believe in prayer. They don't even believe in the basics of Iman, which we have read today in today's verses. So with this, we have come to the end of today's actual discussion on verses. Before finishing this video, I will say exactly what I always say, few things. First of all, whether we are billionaires or beggars or anyone in between, if our effort and our eyes are not for the success of the life, permanent life of hereafter, we are the most dumb and the biggest failure. And number two, that Let's Live Quran message is from a common Muslim to all common Muslims. I am a common Muslim. I am not an alim, not a mufakkir, not a mufti, not a hafiz. And my message is to all common Muslims who are not alims, who are not mufti, who are not mufakkirs, who are not hafiz. And you don't have to be alim or mufakkir or hafiz. You just take out little time from your social media, from your TV, dramas and movies and music and worldly gossip sessions, and try to invest that time in Quran Pak by trying to understand it and reading it in the language which you understand. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring you to His guidance, give you the right path. Because Quran Pak, to understand Quran Pak, we don't have to be an alim. We don't even have to go to an alim. Lot of mufakkirs and most prominent alims, they insist that it's important to go to an alim to understand Quran Pak. With full responsibility, with full humbleness, I am challenging all these alims and muftis and mufakkirs. There is no such requirement for a literate Muslim person to go to anyone. If we just take out little time and invest that time in the language by reading the translation of Quran Pak in the language which we understand. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promise in chapter number 54. 4 times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeated in Surah Al-Qamar, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ, that I have made Quran Pak easy for anyone. So is there anyone who would read it and understand it and reflect on it? So in other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you should read it and understand it in the language which you understand, which will be the translation. And then it's a guarantee Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will first make it as basic Muslim, and after that, inshallah, as I always say, this journey will continue, and inshallah a day will come when we will hopefully be a good moment and we will be fully drowned in this color of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember to be a good Muslim and basic Muslim, and to understand Quran Pak and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not a profession. We don't have to be a professional alim or mufti or mufakkir or hafiz. Being a good Muslim is not a profession. So please invest some time in Quran Pak, and inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will attract you on His path. So with these words, I will finish today's videos. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us an opportunity to be His desirable basic Muslim, and then continue this journey to be a mu'min. Allah Hafiz.